Hello and welcome to our free webinar. We are Companion Dog Trainers Academy and we wanted to offer a few free webinars, and this is our first one. And we're going to do it on working with clients and dogs with disabilities. We're going to start by talking about inclusivity. So first thing to look at, is your venue suitable? All venues should have disability access and be safe, and you've got to consider about the parking. So if you want to open your classes to everybody, you need to make sure that there is parking close by for those that need it, and that the venue is accessible to all. And think about your setup within your hall, for example. So have you got enough space to set the chairs out in a correct manner to allow for something such as wheelchair or scooter to enter your venue? Think about understanding people's needs. So you may need to do some research on different types of people's needs and what they may need from you, and make sure that you have some compassion. You've got to understand that not everybody's the same. Everybody learns differently. Everybody has different needs that will help them to learn, and everyone will need a different setup. So you need to consider all these things before you can open up your classes. So how can we help people? Well, we've already said about accessibility for wheelchairs and scooters, but also thinking about your training methods. You will need to decide, when you do things such as lead walking or anything that involves getting down to the ground, how are you going to adapt that to help people who are in their wheelchairs? For example, if you are trying to do lead walking, think of a way that you can possibly attach the lead safely to the chair, and also think about the fact that the owner may need to desensitize their dog to the wheelchair if they haven't done so already. When you think about deafness, this time we're talking about if people are deaf. So you will need to consider facing them when you are giving out instructions and information about your training. Most deaf people are very good at lip reading, so if you can face them, they have a good chance of understanding you. People with anxiety, for example. Now, you may not be aware of this, so it may be something that you may just notice during the training classes, or it may be something that they have told you up front. In which case, think about things like not putting them on the spot, not asking them to come out and be the only one that everyone's watching. Make sure that you treat them with kindness and are aware that they are probably feeling quite anxious about being in this group of classes. So make sure that you are advising them with their training, but also with plenty and plenty of praise. You should really be trying to help build their confidence, not making them feel like they don't want to come back. So people with autism or different learning needs, again, we can't be expected necessarily to have a massive learning of these things, but we do need to have an understanding of them. So doing a little bit of research so that you have an idea of what may or may not help them. And that will benefit them, but it also benefit you because you want to be seen as an inclusive trainer. Think about whether or not, if you don't already give handouts, whether there are certain people in your class that would definitely benefit from having the training in writing. So if you don't already do that, that's something to consider for people. Think about space. So whether or not people need to sit with plenty of space between themselves and others. Not everybody likes to be in close proximity to people. Think about walking sticks and crutches if someone is coming in with that type of thing. You've not only got to consider their safety, so making sure that there's nothing for them to trip on or catch their stick on, but you've also got to think about the fact that a lot of the dogs in class may not have actually seen someone with a stick, and that goes for the wheelchairs as well. So we've also got to consider getting the dogs used to it. Does the walking stick make a loud clonk as they walk through the hall? In which case they are all areas that you will need to consider. So what about the dogs? Well, again, deaf dogs may often come to class and they're more than capable of learning, but you will need to be aware of the fact that You will need to guide the owner in how to use hand signals, how to get the dog's attention when it's not looking at them without frightening them. And be careful about your approach. So if you're walking over to someone with a deaf dog who is not looking at you, you need to be very careful about reaching out to touch it. So looking at a way that you can create a positive experience to the dog being touched possibly in a certain area, and that the dog then knows that you are asking for it to turn around and give attention. So you will possibly need to talk this through with their owner. Blind dogs may also come to class, and I in fact do have a blind dog who regularly comes to class. And again, the owner should really, of blind dogs, will normally be quite aware of how to deal with their dogs. But you've got to make sure there's nothing around them that they can just walk straight into. Make sure that you're giving them plenty of space, making the other dog owners aware, so long as the owner doesn't mind you making them aware, so that they're aware that their dog may turn and stare at their dogs, but of course they're not really staring, they're just trying to take in the atmosphere with their sense of smell and their hearing. So they may turn and look at other dogs where the other dog may feel that they are being stared at. So it may be useful to tell the whole class about the dog. But don't underestimate their abilities. Yes, you will have to adapt some of your training, anything that's obviously related to sight. And you need to think of ways before your dog is in class of how you're going to help them. What we don't want to do is make people with these types of dogs feel excluded by just saying, oh, well, you can't do this. So we need to find ways where we can help them or give them something else to do if something really isn't appropriate for a blind or deaf dog. Dogs in wheels will appear quite different to other dogs. So if you do have something like that in, you may have to do some desensitizing with the rest of your class, because of course this dog will appear differently. But other than giving it a little bit more space, a dog in wheels can pretty much do most of the things that you'll be looking to teach them. The same with the tripod dog. So that's a dog that's only got 3 legs. They adapt super well to this. The only thing you'll need to think about is if you're asking them to do anything physically that you don't think they can manage. But I've always found, particularly when working in rescue, that the tripod dog really doesn't struggle with anything at all. And of course, the most commonly that you might see is the anxious, fearful dog. And what you're going to have to do here is consider whether or not the dog is too anxious and fearful at this point for class. However, if you've decided they're just mildly fearful and they're just a bit cautious and you feel that a class will be okay, making sure that the first couple of lessons that dog is not pushed or forced to do anything. So in some cases, I've had dogs that have just sat by the chair of their owner and quite contentedly, if that's a word, observed a lot of the class, but not actually taken part much until they've gotten used to it. And I found normally within a few weeks, they start to come out of their shell and will take part in the class. What you've got to explain to the owner at this point is that them being there, they're still learning, so they're able to take the things home that you want them to practice, and the dog is much more likely to practice them at home, and that there is no rush to get the dog to be involved with the rest of the class. So you've really got to make sure that the owner and the dog are given plenty of space and that everything is explained to them so that they don't feel again like, what's the point in coming, my dog's not doing anything. So what we want to make clear is that they're still learning. At the end of the day, classes are about us teaching people and them going home to teach their dogs. So making sure that people understand that and that there's value in what they're still doing, and praising, of course, as their dog starts to grow in confidence, but making sure that they don't use any force and that the dog is allowed the space and time to come out of its shell. If a dog is so anxious to be in class that it is very clear it shouldn't be there, you should take them outside, speak to the owner, and possibly offer them a one-to-one in exchange for their classes in order to perhaps get them to a point where they can later on in life come to classes. So what do we need to do as trainers? As I've already said, we need to have compassion. Not everyone's the same, and we need to understand that. We need to have an understanding as much as we can about different types of people, different types of dogs, and where they may need us to help them in particular. We should be empathic. That goes without saying, really. To be honest, that's the same with all dog owners that are coming to your classes and all dogs. Our instructions need to be clear and concise for people. So if you've got people that have different learning styles and some difficulties, we need to be clear and concise with what we want them to do. And this again could help with giving your handouts. And we can do some learning. So we can go off and we don't have to do courses, we don't have to spend lots of money, but we can certainly do some research in the different types of people that we have that make the world so colourful, and how we can help them, because at the end of the day we want to help people help their dogs. So your job is to do a bit of research, different types of dogs' needs, different types of people's needs, and try to incorporate that into your classes. Thank you for watching, and I hope that you found it useful. Follow us on Facebook. Obviously we're just called Companion Dog Trainers Academy. And you'll be finding out about next webinars. So we will also be doing some more free webinars, but we do also do very low cost webinars as well. Generally once a month. We run 6-day teaching courses for people that want to get some new ideas, or people who really want to be a dog trainer and haven't quite taken the step yet. We've also got workshops that we do. And again, if you feel like contacting us because you'd like us to come to your venue to carry out one of our focus and impulse workshops, then give us a shout. Or you can go to our website, www.companiondogtrainersacademy.com. Thanks for listening.